How do you know that Big Jook had a hit on Dolph's head?
But Quick had told me about it. Quick, and you know what I'm saying?
Here they're saying, call Jook, we're about to go shoot somebody.
The number being whispered around Memphis was wild, $100,000. That's the amount people say was put on Young Dolph's life. Rumors on the street claim Big Jook was tied to that bounty, and not long after, word spread that a target got placed on him too. The tension in the city was already heavy, but things turned even darker when Yo Gotti allegedly came face to face with the man accused of taking his brother's life inside a prison visiting room. What happened next shocked everybody watching this story unfold. Money, power, and long-running beef. This situation had all of it. Yo Gotti, the Memphis rap boss who built an empire worth more than $100 million, was suddenly standing in a cold prison visiting room with emotions running high and the weight of family loss on his shoulders. The same man who helped shape the CMG label from the ground up was now staring at someone accused in his brother's death, and the tension in that moment was something nobody expected. But to really understand why this moment hit so hard, you gotta rewind the whole story. Mario Centel Geedon Mims, better known to the world as Yo Gotti, didn't start with fame or money. He grew up in the Ridgecrest housing projects in Memphis, Tennessee, a rough environment where opportunities were limited, and a lot of young people felt like their dreams had nowhere to go. Back in the late 1990s, a young Mario was out there grinding hard with underground mixtapes. He dropped projects like From the Dope Game to the Rap Game, moving CDs out of car trunks and small shops while most of the world had no clue who he was yet. Every tape was another step forward, another hustle move in the streets of Memphis. Then the momentum started building fast. His 2012 album Live from the Kitchen helped push his name into bigger conversations. And by 2016, the single Down in the DM had the whole culture paying attention. Just like that, Yo Gotti wasn't only a Memphis name anymore, he was a national figure. But what really set him apart from rappers who catch one hit and disappear was his business mindset. While others were chasing quick fame, Gotti was stacking pieces to build a real empire. His label, Collective Music Group, first known as Cocaine Music Group and officially launched in 2012, kept growing year after year into something serious. CMG quickly turned into a powerhouse. The label brought in artists like Moneybagg Yo, Black Youngsta, Glorilla, and ESTG, building a roster that kept the spotlight on Memphis. Major partnerships with Interscope Records added corporate strength behind the scenes. At the same time, Gotti started spreading his investments into real estate and even grabbed a stake in the DC United soccer team. The man was moving strategic, playing chess while many others were stuck playing checkers.
So how did you get to be with Justin Johnson this day on November 17th, 2021?
Oh.
But every empire needs someone behind the curtain keeping things tight. For CMG, that role was filled by Anthony Big Jook Mims, Yo Gotti's older brother. Born around 1976, Big Jook was known as the quiet backbone of the whole operation. People around the label described him as CMG's unofficial number two, the one handling talent scouting, promotions, and street-level connections while Gotti maintained a polished business image in public. And Big Jook wasn't hiding in the background either. He was visible and flashy. You could spot him in music videos all over social media, stepping out in designer fits from head to toe and sliding through the city in luxury cars. In Memphis, especially on the north side, people knew exactly who he was. Some saw him as a respected figure, others kept their distance because his name carried real weight in the streets.
We knew that, you know, they had heat on Dolph and them head or whatever, so.
Who had a hit on whose head?
But this is where the story starts getting complicated. For years, quiet rumors floated around Memphis claiming Big Jook handled the rough side of things while Yo Gotti focused on the music and business spotlight. People would talk about it in barbershops, online comment sections, and street conversations. The narrative that kept popping up was simple. Yo Gotti was the public face, but Big Jook was the muscle behind the scenes. Those whispers didn't just disappear either. They became part of the culture surrounding the CMG camp. Whether true or exaggerated, the talk kept spreading. What nobody questioned, though, was the bond between the two brothers. Growing up in Memphis meant seeing tough situations early in life.
Big Jook had a hit on Dolph head or whatnot, so.
How do you know that Big Jook had a hit on Dolph's head?
But Quick had told me about it.
Violence, loss, and struggle shaped a lot of people in that environment, and loyalty became one of the most important things you could hold on to. In 2020, Yo Gotti even spoke openly about their relationship, saying, "My brother been my rock. He taught me the game." At the time, those words sounded like a proud tribute to family and loyalty. Looking back now, they carry a much heavier feeling. The two brothers had built their rise together and stood side by side while building CMG into something powerful.
Quick, and you know what I'm saying, being just.
How much money was it supposed to be?
100,000.
But the game Big Jook was connected to was about to collide with another powerful name in Memphis rap. Enter Young Dolph, born Adolph Thornton Jr., the face of Paper Route Empire. Dolph represented a completely different energy in the city. Independent, outspoken, and proud of it, he turned Paper Route Empire into a symbol of doing things your own way without depending on major label systems. The tension between CMG and PRE reportedly started heating up around 2014.
All right, so the next one from Justin Johnson to TZ is Dolph rented the whole studio out for the rest of the year. Call Jook, let's make some. Right? That's what it says?
That's when people say Young Dolph turned down a deal connected to CMG, choosing to stay fully independent instead. What began as a business disagreement slowly turned into a loud and public rivalry. Soon, the music started reflecting it, and the diss records began flying back and forth across the scene.
Because on the slideshow, we talked about reaching out to Jook on July 31st, but here they're saying, call Jook, we're about to go shoot somebody.
In 2017, Young Dolph dropped the track Play with Yo B, and fans immediately felt the shot aimed straight at Yo Gotti's reputation in the streets. Not long after, people believed Gotti's side responded with subtle jabs in songs like Designer Party. At first, some observers thought the tension might just be rap competition meant to boost attention and streams. But things took a serious turn when real violence started making headlines. Later in 2017, Young Dolph's SUV in Charlotte was reportedly hit with more than 100 bullets during a shooting incident, and somehow he survived. Months later, there was another shooting connected to him in Los Angeles, and once again, Dolph made it out alive. The streets started pointing fingers and spreading theories about who might be behind it, with Big Jook's name often mentioned in speculation. Still, none of those claims were proven in court.
It shows on 11/16/2021 at 17:37, 15 hours. Looks like a 331-second.
Yo Gotti mostly stayed quiet while the internet kept arguing about the situation. In a viral moment, he addressed the online drama by saying, "I don't go back and forth on the internet. You're never gonna win." Fans and critics kept debating what was really going on behind the scenes, and the rivalry between CMG and PRE became one of the most talked about conflicts in modern hip-hop. Then everything changed on November 17th, 2021. Young Dolph walked into Makita's Cookies in Memphis during the afternoon, and tragedy struck inside the shop. The news shocked the city and sent waves through the entire hip-hop world. As investigators and court cases started unfolding, new names and alleged connections began appearing in reports, leaving people stunned.
Outgoing call from Justin Johnson to Anthony Mims.
Right. And you did that much nicer on your slideshow. I just sort of went in and downloaded the actual CDR thing.
One clip from the investigation especially caught attention. Reports suggested that Justin Johnson, also known as Straight Drop, was not just some random person involved. According to testimony and records discussed in court, there were alleged communications connected to Big Jook that quickly became a major focus in the case. Inside the courtroom, the defense attorney started laying everything out piece by piece. Phone records, text messages, and timelines were all brought up as they tried to show how certain people might have been connected. Messages from Justin Johnson and records involving Anthony Big Jook Mims were mentioned as part of the discussion, and the courtroom got quiet as the details were explained.
This is a text from Justin Johnson to Jook.
He testified about that, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Who are the texts from?
The defense argued that these communications suggested a bigger plan behind the scenes. One detail that grabbed everyone's attention was a phone call record. Investigators pointed out a 331-second call between Justin Johnson and Anthony Mims, also known as Big Jook, on November 16, 2021, just one day before Young Dolph was killed. That call lasted about 5.5 minutes. Naturally, people started asking the big question, what was said during that conversation? Prosecutors claimed the messages between Johnson and Big Jook included language they believed hinted at planning and coordination. In court, they argued those texts and calls could show how different people were communicating around the time of the crime.
So it's from Justin Johnson to Anthony Mims.
And I know there's more than one text, but I'm concerned about the one arrested.
I'm starting with the first one.
So we've already discussed all the
According to their theory, those records helped build the idea of a larger plot that shocked Memphis and the hip-hop world. Another moment in court raised even more questions. When the defense asked investigators whether police had ever tried to formally interview Big Jook about his alleged connections to suspects, the response caught attention. Officers confirmed they had executed a search warrant on his phone at the airport, but testimony suggested there was no full interview conducted at that time. Those unanswered questions started hanging over the entire case. Then things took another dramatic turn when Cornelius Smith, one of the men who admitted involvement in the shooting, took the witness stand. As the courtroom listened closely, Smith was asked how he became connected to Justin Johnson on the day of the killing. And his answer reportedly stunned everyone in the room: $100,000. That number kept echoing through the courtroom and the streets of Memphis. According to testimony discussed during the case, prosecutors believed a six-figure bounty had been promised in connection to Young Dolph's killing. Investigators claimed Anthony Big Jook Mims was allegedly tied to that offer, turning a long-running rap rivalry into something far darker than music competition.
Hardware store and all the other stuff. With regards to Jook, did you all ever try to interview Jook?
Yes.
When did you try to do that?
Court testimony said the information about the money first moved through Hernandez Govan, a man prosecutors described as a middleman. According to statements shared during the trial, Govan allegedly helped connect the shooters to the people offering payment. What started as rumors in the street suddenly became evidence and witness statements being examined inside a courtroom. As the legal process unfolded, the trial surrounding Young Dolph's death exposed a disturbing side of the Memphis rap scene. Testimony painted a picture of how personal rivalries, street alliances, and money could collide in dangerous ways. The case showed how conflicts that begin in music sometimes spill into real-world consequences that shock an entire city. The most explosive moment came when Cornelius Smith took the stand in September 2024. Smith admitted in court that he was involved in the shooting that killed Young Dolph, giving testimony that stunned everyone listening. He stated that he was promised $40,000 for his role, an amount many observers described as shockingly small considering the life that was taken.
When we executed a search warrant on his phone
Okay.
when he was at the airport.
Okay. It wasn't annotated that you had talked to him anywhere in the police report, so lead detective said you guys never.
During testimony, Smith's background was also discussed. Reports in court described him as someone struggling with serious personal issues, including addiction and deep grief after the loss of his own child. Prosecutors argued that his desperation made him vulnerable to being pulled into a violent plan for money. Investigators also presented phone records, meetings, and financial transactions they believed connected different people involved in the plot. Prosecutors claimed the payments moved step by step through intermediaries before reaching the individuals who carried out the attack. According to their argument, the money trail suggested coordination that reached far beyond the shooters themselves.
So how did you get to be with Justin Johnson this day on November 17, 2021?
We knew that, you know, they had heat on Dolph in them head or whatever, so
Who had a hit on whose head?
Big Jook had a hit on Dolph head or whatnot, so.
When financial details were examined, prosecutors pointed to payments allegedly tied to Hernandez Govan. Testimony suggested $10,000 connected to Smith and $10,000 tied to Johnson, with claims that these payments were pieces of a larger $100,000 bounty investigators believed had been promised earlier. Those claims became one of the most intense and debated parts of the entire trial. Prosecutors pushed a powerful argument in court claiming the case looked like a murder-for-hire setup, with Big Jook allegedly sitting near the top of the chain. According to their theory, the violence wasn't random. They believed it was organized step by step. Even after Young Dolph's death, testimony suggested some of the people involved were still focused on one thing: getting paid. Witnesses and investigators described conversations about money that reportedly continued after the crime had already happened.
How do you know that Big Jook had a hit on Dolph's head?
But Quick had told me about it, Quick, and you know what I'm saying, being just
How much money was it supposed to be?
$100,000.
According to what was discussed during the trial, individuals were allegedly still talking about their promised share of the payment. The situation sounded cold and calculated, with prosecutors arguing that people were treating a tragic death like a financial deal that needed to be settled. But the courtroom battle didn't stop there. When Cornelius Smith faced cross-examination, the defense went straight at his credibility. Lawyers challenged his story from every angle, pointing to his past struggles with drug addiction and arguing that his memory and judgment might not be reliable. Their strategy was clear. If the jury doubted Smith, the prosecution's case could weaken. The defense also raised another controversial point that grabbed attention in the courtroom. They claimed Smith's legal representation had allegedly received $50,000 from individuals connected to CMG, suggesting that outside influence might have played a role. That claim immediately sparked debate and added even more tension to an already explosive trial. All of it left one major question hanging in the air. Was Smith telling the full truth, or was his version of events protecting some people while placing blame on others? The defense pushed that doubt hard. Still, prosecutors kept pointing back to the bigger picture. Phone records, text messages, and testimony from multiple witnesses that they said formed a strong web of evidence tying different pieces of the story together. Justin Straight Drop Johnson's trial reached its dramatic ending on September 26, 2024, and the verdict sent shockwaves through Memphis.
Yeah. Where were you at when you heard the news that Jook had passed away? And how did it affect you?
I think I was riding down the street.
The jury found him guilty on multiple charges, including first-degree murder, conspiracy, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. Once the decision was read in court, the weight of the case became clear. The punishment would be severe. The judge handed down a sentence that guaranteed Johnson would spend the rest of his life behind bars, life in prison, plus an additional 35 years. The stacked sentence meant there was virtually no chance of him ever walking free again. As deputies placed him in shackles and led him out of the courtroom, the moment felt like the closing chapter for one of the most shocking crimes in modern Memphis rap history. Johnson's legal team quickly responded by filing an appeal. They argued that certain evidence issues and procedural mistakes may have affected the fairness of the trial. Despite those claims, the conviction remained in place while the appeal process began, leaving Johnson facing decades inside prison walls. Outside the courtroom, the streets of Memphis were buzzing with speculation. People kept asking the same question: would there be retaliation for Young Dolph's death? The tension surrounding the case hadn't disappeared, and many wondered if the story was truly finished. Then another twist came during the legal battle involving Hernandez Govan. On August 21st, 2025, Govan's trial ended in a surprising outcome when he was acquitted of all charges connected to the murder. The decision caught many observers off guard and immediately sparked debate across the city.
I got a call, and I just was like, damn, I hated it for Big Daddy, I hate that for anybody that I know,
One key reason was how Cornelius Smith's testimony was interpreted during the trial. While his statements helped convict Justin Johnson earlier, Govan's defense argued those same words pointed more toward Big Jook as the alleged organizer behind the bounty. Their strategy suggested Govan had been wrongly blamed, while the person they claimed planned everything was no longer alive to face charges. Hernandez Govan's acquittal left many people with mixed emotions. Some saw it as justice, while others felt there were still unanswered questions surrounding Young Dolph's death. One thing became painfully clear, though. Big Jook would never face a courtroom to defend himself or be judged by a jury. The man whose name had been mentioned again and again during the investigation was gone before the legal system could ever reach a final answer. Anthony Big Jook Mims, who prosecutors had previously linked to the alleged plot, died months before any possible trial involving him could ever happen. His story came to a sudden and violent end, closing the door on what could have been one of the biggest courtroom showdowns in Memphis history.
Because he was at a funeral and he was taking a smoke break, or?
Yeah, he was at a repast, when they going to celebrate, life or whatever. Went outside to take a smoke break. And there it was.
On January 13th, 2024, at around 4:15 in the afternoon, Big Jook was shot outside the Perignon Restaurant and Event Center in Memphis's Hickory Hill area. The location carried heavy meaning because he had just attended a gathering honoring someone who had passed away, a moment that was supposed to be about remembrance and community. According to investigators and reports from the scene, the attack happened quickly. Authorities said individuals arrived in a white Mercedes-Benz, stepped out with high-powered rifles, and fired multiple shots before speeding away.
Through Govan.
All right, and who is Govan?
Hernandez Govan, Quick. You know about Quick.
Okay, who's Quick?
Associate.
Witness accounts and surveillance footage later became key parts of the investigation as police worked to understand exactly what happened. Big Jook was rushed to St. Francis Hospital, but doctors were unable to save him. His death immediately sent shockwaves through Memphis, especially because his name had already been tied to the high-profile Young Dolph case. Police later described the killing as a targeted attack, which only fueled more speculation across the city. For many people watching the story unfold, the timing raised serious questions and deepened the mystery surrounding one of the most intense chapters in Memphis hip-hop history.
All right, you say associate. Is he younger or older than you?
Older.
What neighborhood does he hang out in?
Orange Mound.
Does he live over there?
Yes, sir, he did.
Do you know what street his house is on?
Right.
You familiar with that street?
Yes, sir.
Police made it clear from the start, investigators did not believe this was random violence or a robbery that went wrong. Authorities described the killing as a targeted attack, something planned ahead of time. Soon after the shooting, police released images of the suspected vehicle, a white Mercedes-Benz, hoping someone in the community might recognize it and come forward with information. Despite the public attention, no suspects have been officially named in connection with the killing. The mystery only deepened as the case stayed quiet, leaving the city of Memphis with more questions than answers. Hernandez Govan later spoke about the moment he heard the news during an interview after his acquittal. Even Govan, who had been accused during the Young Dolph investigation of acting as a middleman, said he was shocked by how events unfolded. According to reports discussed publicly, Big Jook had simply stepped outside during the gathering for a quick smoke break, and moments later, the shooting happened. The setting made the situation even more chilling. The event had been meant to honor someone who had passed away, yet it turned into another tragic moment that shook the community.
And you testified earlier about this, just to be clear, Govan before the hit on Dolph, before you did it.
As of February 1st, 2026, no arrests have been announced in Big Jook's killing. Investigators say the case remains open, though police have kept many details private while the investigation continues. The lack of clear answers has fueled heavy speculation across Memphis. Online discussions and street rumors have thrown around different names and theories, but none of those claims have been officially confirmed. What is certain is that the tension surrounding these events left the city watching closely, wondering if the cycle of violence would finally come to an end.
Had already negotiated with you to get $10,000.
Yeah, for me, and $10,000 just.
Conspirators worried about getting paid.
Okay. Now,
Then January 2026 rolled around and the story took another wild turn. CEO Lil Kenny, whose real name is Kenneth Watson, was arrested after a high-speed police chase that reportedly involved drugs and firearms. Because he had been associated with Young Dolph's circle and was often linked to Paper Route Empire, the news spread fast. Almost instantly, YouTube channels and social media pages started connecting dots and throwing out theories. Some online voices even claimed Kenny hinted at revenge in his music. That rumor alone sent comment sections into chaos. But it's important to note that no official reports confirmed any connection between Watson and the shooting of Big Jook. Still, the speculation kept growing, showing just how intense the situation in Memphis had become. And this is where the story takes one of its most shocking twists yet. The moment that pushed this saga beyond a simple rap rivalry and into something people will talk about in hip-hop conversations for years.
I want to be clear about, I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I want to make sure, $10,000 to you, you talked about it before.
After Justin Johnson's conviction, he sat alone in a prison cell waiting to begin serving his life sentence, and most people believed the story was finally reaching its end. But something unexpected happened next, something nobody saw coming. While the legal battles played out, Yo Gotti had been watching everything from a distance. Court hearings, testimony, and accusations kept bringing his brother's name back into the spotlight. Prosecutors repeatedly argued that Big Jook played a central role in the alleged plan against Young Dolph, claiming a $100,000 bounty had been placed because of rivalry and pride. The man Yo Gotti once called his rock was suddenly being described in court as something far darker. The same brother who he said taught me the game was now being portrayed to the world as the mastermind behind a deadly plot. And before Big Jook could ever respond to those accusations, before he could ever step into a courtroom and tell his side, his life was cut short in a violent attack outside a memorial gathering in Memphis.
And then he came back to you after the fact and asked you about the 10, because he wanted his money, right?
The aftermath hit the city hard. Big Jook had grown up in Memphis with deep roots in the community, and his death only added another layer of tragedy to an already painful story. Police confirmed he had been struck by multiple gunshots outside the event venue, and the shocking nature of the attack left people across the city stunned. What made the situation even more frustrating for many observers was what happened next. Almost nothing publicly changed in the investigation. As of February 1st, 2026, more than 2 years after the shooting, authorities had still not announced any arrests connected to the case. Police said the investigation remained open, but details were limited as they tried to prevent leaks during the process. That silence created a storm of speculation online and across Memphis. People wanted answers, especially within the local hip-hop community where emotions were already running high after the earlier tragedies. Everyone seemed to be waiting for clarity about what really happened. Then another wave of controversy appeared in 2025 court documents connected to the broader investigation. Those filings mentioned claims about alleged threats toward members of Paper Route Empire, which immediately sent shockwaves through the music industry. The idea that the conflict could have gone beyond one target made the situation feel even more serious. Whether Yo Gotti believed those accusations or rejected them completely, the impact on him was impossible to ignore. His brother's name was now tied to heavy allegations, and the pressure surrounding the case kept growing as the entire hip-hop world watched closely. Pain and loss can change people in powerful ways, and according to rumors from sources speaking anonymously, the story may have taken another intense turn after the court verdict. Reports began circulating that Yo Gotti allegedly managed to arrange a prison visit with Justin Johnson not long after Johnson received the life sentence that would keep him behind bars forever. Exactly how that visit might have been approved has never been clearly explained. Some people speculated that Yo Gotti's powerful industry connections, including relationships through major music networks, could have helped make it happen. Others pushed different theories, claiming money might have influenced the process. But the truth is, none of those claims have ever been officially confirmed. Prison authorities have stayed quiet about the details, refusing to publicly discuss visitor approvals or internal procedures. Because of that silence, the story about what happened next has mostly been built from scattered reports, secondhand accounts, and rumors that continue to circulate online. According to those claims, Yo Gotti allegedly ended up sitting across a table from Justin Johnson, the man convicted in the killing of Young Dolph. The situation itself carried heavy irony. Johnson had been found guilty of the crime, while prosecutors had previously argued that Big Jook, Yo Gotti's own brother, helped organize the bounty behind it. Imagine the tension in that room. Two men from the same city, both shaped by the streets of Memphis, now sitting face to face with years of violence and accusations hanging over the moment. If those reports are true, the meeting reportedly began quietly, almost calm, with both men speaking across the table while guards monitored the visit closely. Reports from the case also revealed something surprising about Justin Johnson. According to testimony, Johnson once talked about wanting a CMG deal before everything in his life spiraled out of control. Prosecutors said that after the shooting, Johnson allegedly sent a message to Big Jook signaling the job was done. In court, witnesses described it as a quick hand signal, American Sign Language used between the suspects, a moment the prosecution argued showed celebration after the crime. Imagine how heavy that must have felt for Yo Gotti hearing those details later. Sitting across from Johnson, the man connected to the message sent to his brother, the tension in that room must have been thick. But according to the reports floating around, Gotti wasn't there for small talk or industry talk. He wasn't there for peace or closure either. He wanted answers. The same questions that had been burning in his mind ever since Big Jook was killed outside that Memphis restaurant. For months, the streets had been buzzing with rumors about retaliation and hidden players behind the scenes. Still, no official names ever came out publicly connected to Big Jook's killing. Johnson himself had already been locked up when that shooting happened, meaning he couldn't have carried it out personally. But people believed he understood the streets, the alliances and the rivalries, the kind of knowledge that could point to who had motive and influence. According to scattered accounts from people who claim knowledge of the visit, the conversation between the two men eventually turned tense. Some say Johnson refused to share information, while others claim certain words may have pushed the moment into dangerous territory. What's often repeated in rumors is that something said during the exchange crossed a line connected to Big Jook's memory. At that point, witnesses claimed the situation suddenly escalated inside the visiting area, with guards quickly stepping in to regain control of the room. According to rumors that spread online afterward, a weapon somehow ended up in Yo Gotti's hand during that tense moment. The same man known for building a massive music empire, shaking hands with executives, appearing in magazines, and leading a successful label, was suddenly at the center of a chaotic scene inside a prison visiting room. In that instant, the calm image people were used to seeing was replaced by a much more intense situation. Reports claimed the confrontation escalated quickly. Guards stationed nearby reacted within seconds once the disturbance started, rushing toward the table to separate the two men before things could get worse. But according to those circulating accounts, the incident had already turned serious by the time officers stepped in. Stories spreading online claim Justin Johnson was injured during the altercation and needed immediate medical attention. Correctional staff reportedly moved fast, calling in medical teams to stabilize him, while security officers restrained Yo Gotti and removed him from the visiting area. The entire situation was quickly brought under control inside the facility. Within hours, talk about the alleged incident spread everywhere. Social media pages, blogs, and entertainment outlets began discussing the story nonstop. People were stunned that the same artist who built CMG into a $100 million brand, partnered with major record companies, and invested in businesses like sports and real estate was now being linked to such a dramatic moment inside a prison. As the rumors circulated, legal commentators started debating what charges could apply if an incident like that had actually taken place. Some mentioned possibilities such as assault, bringing prohibited items into a correctional facility, or other serious violations. But without official confirmation from authorities, the situation remained surrounded by speculation and unanswered questions. As the story spread, the list of possible legal consequences people talked about seemed to grow by the hour. Commentators and online analysts began speculating about what prosecutors might consider if the reports about the visiting room incident were accurate. At the same time, Yo Gotti's legal team reportedly moved quickly to manage the public narrative, releasing statements and speaking with media outlets as the situation gained attention. Another major factor in the discussion was the possibility of security footage and witness statements from inside the facility. Correctional centers typically have cameras covering visiting areas, and many observers pointed out that any recorded evidence could play a big role if authorities ever decided to investigate the situation further. Because of that, people online kept debating what the next legal step might be. Beyond the rumors and headlines, the moment also pushed a much bigger issue back into the spotlight: the long history of tension surrounding Memphis's rap scene. For years, fans had watched the rivalry between CMG and Paper Route Empire unfold through music, interviews, and street talk. What started as competitive energy in hip-hop gradually turned into something far more serious over time. Many people began viewing the entire situation as the tragic outcome of a conflict that stretched across more than a decade. On one side stood Yo Gotti and the empire he built through CMG, and on the other side was Young Dolph and his independent movement through PRE. The clash between those two visions of success became one of the most talked about rivalries in modern hip-hop. The impact on Memphis itself has been heavy. Several artists connected to the scene have reportedly chosen to move away from the city, hoping to avoid becoming caught in ongoing tensions. Key Glock, Young Dolph's cousin and a major PRE artist, was among those reported to have stepped back from Memphis after Dolph's death, focusing on his career while keeping distance from the environment that had brought so much loss. Memphis unfortunately struggles with high levels of violent crime each year, and community leaders often point out how important it is to break cycles of retaliation and conflict. For many residents and artists alike, the hope is that the next chapter for the city's music scene focuses more on creativity, success, and unity rather than rivalry and tragedy. Many people looking at the situation say the violence connected to these conflicts has started to feel almost generational, repeating itself year after year. What began as rivalries and neighborhood tensions has, for some communities, grown into a cycle that becomes harder and harder to break. Each new incident seems to reopen old wounds and keep the conflict alive. During the trials connected to Young Dolph's death, Cornelius Smith described in court what prosecutors believed was a complex web of connections linking several of the people involved. His testimony pointed to relationships built through neighborhoods, longtime friendships, and street affiliations that stretched across parts of Memphis. Those courtroom statements painted a picture of how tightly connected some of these circles were. The same neighborhoods that helped launch major rap careers, producing artists like Yo Gotti and Young Dolph, were also places facing serious struggles with violence and loss. For many observers, that contrast was heartbreaking. Hip-hop was supposed to be a way out for a lot of young people in the city. Music offered opportunity, recognition, and a path away from dangerous environments. But in some tragic cases, the same scene that created success stories also became tied to conflicts that pulled artists and associates into legal trouble or worse. Looking ahead, many questions still remain. The music industry has been watching closely as rumors and legal discussions around Yo Gotti continue to circulate. For CMG, the label he built into a major powerhouse, the uncertainty has sparked debates about leadership, reputation, and what the future might hold for the artists connected to the brand. Since the news and rumors started spreading, many CMG artists have stayed completely quiet. Social media pages connected to the label suddenly went silent with no public comments about the situation. Appearances that were once planned started getting canceled or pushed back, leaving fans wondering what was really going on behind the scenes. Across the music industry, people are watching closely, unsure what the future might look like for one of hip-hop's most successful independent labels. Online, the speculation has exploded in every direction. Comment sections, podcasts, and video channels are filled with theories about what may have happened and what it could mean moving forward. Everyone seems to have an opinion, and the story keeps growing with every new rumor that appears. Some voices online argue that Yo Gotti's actions, if the reports are true, could be seen as the reaction of a grieving brother still dealing with the loss of his family member. Others strongly disagree and point back to the allegations and testimony that once linked Big Jook to the earlier conflict. They argue that years of rivalry and accusations helped create the dangerous environment that eventually led to tragedy. Because of that, the debate around the CMG versus Paper Road Empire rivalry has reignited all over again. Old interviews, old lyrics, and past controversies are being pulled back into the spotlight as fans and commentators try to understand where things went wrong. What almost everyone can agree on, though, is that the situation shows how destructive these conflicts can become. Young Dolph lost his life in Memphis in 2021, and Big Jook was later killed in another shocking attack. The entire story has left deep scars across the city's hip-hop community. In the end, the events surrounding this rivalry have changed lives, careers, and families forever. For Memphis and the artists connected to its music scene, the hope now is that the future can move toward growth, success, and peace instead of continuing the cycle of loss. What happened in the end came down to a moment of anger and grief that can never be undone. A single chain of events changed everything, leaving a permanent mark on the Memphis rap scene. The city that once gave the world legends like 3 6 Mafia, 8 Ball, and MJG, and Project Pat now carries the weight of a conflict that shook the entire culture. At this point, the question isn't about who won the rivalry anymore. When you step back and look at the lives lost and the people sitting behind bars, one thing becomes painfully clear. There were no real winners in this story. Too many families have been affected, and too many dreams have been cut short along the way. The bigger question now is what comes next for Memphis. How many more lives could be affected before the cycle finally stops? How many more families will feel the impact before the city finds a way forward? Those are the questions people across the community are still asking today. As night falls over Memphis and the skyline fades into the darkness, the story still lingers in the air. The streets remember everything, and the city continues to watch what happens next. And if you made it this far, make sure to like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.